Hello and welcome back to the Study Legal English YouTube channel. Welcome back if you're a regular here. Welcome if it's your first time. I'm Louise and today we are diving in to 10 regular verbs that legal English learners should know. These verbs are essential for understanding contracts, court proceedings, legal documents, and you can see that this is part 1, so it means that a part 2 is coming soon. In fact, it's coming next week. So stick around to the end because at the end of this video, we are going to do a quiz to test your knowledge. So make sure you're paying attention. Head over to studylegalenglish.com/episode 152. to download the slide handout for this episode. As always, please like this video, subscribe, share it with a friend or a colleague. It really helps me to grow my channel, so thank you. So, are you ready? Let's go. What are regular verbs? If you're not a beginner, you might want to review this section or you might want to skip about a minute ahead to the main content. If, on the other hand, you're a beginner, stick around to check out this part, okay? What are regular verbs? Regular verbs are verbs that form their past simple and their past participle by usually adding ed to the base form. For example, we've got the verb work. We form the past tense, the past simple tense using worked, and the past participle is also worked, right? We add ed simply to the base form of the verb. An example sentence, she worked on the case yesterday, past simple, and the next sentence uses a tense where we use the past participle. In this case, it's the present perfect. So I have worked at a law firm before, talking generally about the past there, okay? There are some further examples of regular verbs, how they are formed. So if the verb ends in E, we only add a D. For example, love, loved. We're simply adding a D instead of an ED, otherwise it would look quite strange. Save, saved, we simply add a D there, right? If the verb ends in a consonant plus a Y, then you change the Y to an I and then add the ed. For example, study, studied, right? The Y becomes an I and we add an ed. Reply, replied. You're getting rid of that Y, you're adding an ed. Nice and straightforward, right? So, you know, sometimes English can be quite easy. I know that it's difficult for its pronunciation, but come on, the grammar, right? It's not too difficult if we compare it to some other languages. Your regular verbs, you can easily form the past simple and then also plenty of other tenses which then use the past participle, for example, the present perfect, because it's one word. We use one word, one verb for all of the pronouns. You don't need to conjugate. Here, just to highlight that, you know, it's worked, right? I worked, he worked, you worked, she worked, etc. Okay, so once you know your regular verbs, you can speak in quite a wide range of tenses and quite well, right? So let's now move on to those 10 regular verbs that you should know. Claim. Claim, claimed, claimed, right? It's a regular verb, so we're just adding the ed. What does it mean? It's to assert ownership of something, to assert a right, to assert an entitlement to something, often through legal action. An example sentence, the claimant claimed damages for breach of contract. The claimant started a court case in order to get damages, to get compensation because a contract had been breached by the other party. Okay, they're asserting their right to damages through the court. Second one, draft. Draft, we simply add an ed, drafted, drafted, right? What does it mean? It means to create a version of a document which will usually then be revised before it's finalized. Typically, we talk about drafting contracts, right? An example, using this irregular verb in the past simple here, the lawyer drafted the agreement to include a confidentiality clause. The lawyer drafted the agreement to include a confidentiality clause. Number 3, file. File, filed, filed. Okay, in your past simple and then your past participle there. What does it mean? It means to formally present a document to an authority, such as a court. We often talk about filing documents at court, right? Or filing documents with the court. Let's look at an example sentence. When responding to a claim, a defendant has 14 days to file the defense. When responding to a claim, a defendant has 14 days to file the defense. Okay, to file that document with the court, to send it to the court, to formally present it to the court. Pay attention to the pronunciation of file, filed, filed. It's not feel or fill, which are different words, right? Let's move on to number 4, grant. Grant, granted, granted. Okay, let's look at the definition. To give something formally or legally, right? To give something through some kind of legal process. An example is the judge granted the injunction to stop any further construction. The judge granted the injunction. They allowed a party to have as a remedy an injunction, which is a type of remedy to prevent a party from doing something, or in some cases to request them to do something. Okay? The court can grant remedies such as injunctions. Also, we often talk about granting a license when you're giving the authorization to someone to use a license. Let's move on to number 5, to settle. Settle, settled, settled, right? In the past participle. The definition is to resolve a dispute or come to an agreement. Just pay attention that in my dictionary here, Black's Law Dictionary, it gives about 15 definitions of settle, right? And so pay attention that quite a lot of these words that we use in legal English, they do have other meanings, okay? The meanings that I'm giving you here today are the most commonly used ones, all right? So if you see these words in a different context and you think, I'm a bit confused here because it doesn't sound like the definition that Louise gave, yes, it could well be a different definition. Don't we love legal English? Okay, so complicated. Let's move on to an example sentence with settle using this definition. The parties settled the case out of court. The parties settled the case out of court. What does it mean? It means that there was a dispute between the parties. Maybe they wanted to go to trial. They could have been in proceedings, but eventually they didn't wait until the court judgment. They were able to, perhaps through negotiation, make some kind of agreement to settle or to resolve the dispute. Okay? Number 6, submit. To submit. In the past, it's submitted and submitted. It's a regular verb, like all of these, nice and easy. The definition is, I've got 2 definitions here because there are actually 2 definitions which are quite common. You will probably either use this word or see it in your job, in your work, in your life as a legal professional. The first one is to present for consideration or judgment. You're presenting something for a particular purpose here. The second definition is to accept the will, to accept the desire, the orders of another superior force, of someone who is higher than you. Let's look at some examples to make this clearer. Okay, some typical ways that you might see this being used or that you might use it. Number 1, the lawyer submitted the evidence to the court. The lawyer presented it formally so that the court could consider it. Okay, you can submit evidence, you can submit documents, you can submit a job application if you're applying for a job. Let's look at the second example. The parties hereby submit to the exclusive jurisdiction of England and Wales. You may have seen a similar clause like this if you deal with contracts. What does it mean? So here it's saying that the parties accept that if disputes arise, it will be the courts of England and Wales, that superior force that's superior to the parties themselves. They are accepting the will of those courts. They will resolve disputes through those courts, essentially. All right, let's move on to number 7. Argue, argued, argued. Another regular verb that you will probably use as a legal professional. What's the definition? You probably know. To present reasons or arguments to support a position. An example sentence is, the lawyer argued that his client's IP rights were being infringed by the company. Okay, the lawyer was presenting reasons and arguments to say, look, my client's IP rights have been violated, have been infringed by another company, right? Okay, number 8, appeal, appealed, appealed. Again, another typical regular verb that you would use. Definition, to request a higher court to review a lower court's decision. You know that you would probably go on appeal if your client is not satisfied with the decision of the court of first instance. Let's look at an example sentence. The defendant appealed the court of first instance decision. Okay, the defendant in the case was not happy with the result. They probably lost at first instance, so they are appealing, right? And in this situation, we're using the past simple tense, so nice and easy, we just say appealed. All right, let's look at number 9. To award, in the past simple, awarded. In the past participle, awarded as well. Let's look at the definition. To give a judgment or compensation to a party. So to award in legal English is different from award in general English. You might be awarded a prize in a competition in general English, whereas here in legal English you can see it's a bit different. Let's look at an example sentence to make it a bit clearer. The judge awarded damages to the claimant. The judge awarded compensation, damages, to the claimant here. They ordered the other party to pay damages to the claimant. All right, let's look at the final one, number 10. Breach, breached, breached. Another really common regular verb that legal professionals need to know. What does it mean? It means to violate a law, an agreement, or a duty. It's especially used with contracts, okay? To breach the contract. You are in breach of contract. An example sentence, the company breached its contractual obligations, okay? Meaning that they didn't fulfill them, they didn't perform their contractual obligations either at all, or they did something that was incorrect. They didn't follow the contract, they didn't comply with the contract. All right, great job. I hope you've been paying attention because now it is time to practice. Let's check that you can remember all of the definitions of these words. On the left, you can see the verbs numbered 1 to 10, and on the right, you've got the definitions with letters A to J, and the definitions are mixed up. So can you match the verb to the definition? Of course, all of these verbs, we've gone through them. They are all regular verbs. They all end in ed when we are putting them into the past simple or using the past participle. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute here to look at these definitions with the verbs, see if you can match them up. If you've got the handout from the website, you can actually do this on paper. And if you need more time, what can you do? You can pause the video, right? Okay, so let's go through the answers together. So claim. That's a nice easy one because it's the first one, right? claim, to assert ownership, a right, etc. To draft, drafted in the past, okay? That is down here, to create a version of a document, that one, okay? I'm going to make a complete mess of this, right? Okay, number 3, to file. To file, which one is that? Hopefully you've got it. It's all the way down here. To formally present a document to an authority such as a court. Okay, next one. To grant. To grant. To grant. What is it? To down here as well. To give something formally or legally. You grant a license. Remember, the judge might grant an award of damages, okay, to a party. Number 5, to settle. To settle, what does it mean? We've got to settle. It can be up here, okay, B, to resolve a dispute or to come to an agreement. Often, parties can settle outside of court before going to trial or even during a trial, right? Number 6, to submit. Hopefully this one's an easy one for you because it had the 2 definitions, right? Here we go. To present for consideration or to accept the will of another or a superior force. Okay. Number 7, to argue. To argue. To present reasons or arguments to support a position. Again, here in general English, you might talk about arguing. I argued with my husband. I argued with my children. I argued with my mother when you're having a dispute. But usually in legal English, it's more about presenting reasons, arguments. We can use this definition in general English as well, in academia, for example. But absolutely in legal English, it's about, debating, presenting reasons, arguments, especially to support a position, right? Okay, number 8, to appeal. To request a higher court to review a lower court's decision. Okay, we're getting towards the end. Number 9, to award. Here, to give a judgment or compensation to a party. And finally, number 10, breach. Here, to violate a law, agreement, or duty. Especially, we use it to breach a contract, right? All right, so it's judgment time. How many did you get correct? Let me know. I'm sure you did a great job. So well done for even watching this video and doing this exercise. Let me know how many you got correct. Let me know in the comments. Why don't you try to make some sentences using those regular verbs, especially in the past simple tense? Why don't you give that a go? So finally, remember, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. Click the subscribe and notification button. You can, if you haven't already, go over to studylegalenglish.com/episode 152 to download the handout for this particular episode. Join me on Facebook. My Study Legal English Facebook group is there for you to join, and you can follow me on Instagram @LegalEnglisher. Thanks for watching and see you next time.